it turns out the longest that you can hope for an influencer to stay the fuck at home is about the same amount of time as sort of a humans in gestation, 9 months.
How long did you bake that? That's
I know.
I like how casual he was too. He was like, "Wait, should I start with my
hold on? Is it time for me to
hella awesome intro to this topic?"
Should I drop this mic real quick?
Should we just be done with the show now?
Well, thanks for listening, everyone. So we heard about and stay the fuck away from Granite Bay. So
stay the fuck away from Eddie Murphy's house.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. There was an influencer party. I wasn't invited.
Rude.
Very rude. At Eddie Murphy's old mansion in Granite Bay, apparently.
But it wasn't his old mansion or something?
It was.
That's what I heard. Oh,
yeah.
I heard
he doesn't own it anymore.
Edward doesn't live
He
there
lost
anymore.
it in a divorce, but it was his Sacramento home.
Okay.
And yeah, from what I hear, it's haunted by his, ghosts of lost love.
Also COVID.
And COVID. It's haunted by COVID.
Copious amounts of COVID-19 everywhere.
All of these sort of like starfucker types, folks who like call themselves public figures in their social media profiles, and they all went out on New Year's Eve to this party. Apparently the guy who lives there didn't even throw the party. He just will charge you 25 grand to like have the house to yourself for a night. So who knows who threw this party. But all these people just came down there, partied it up. Well over 100 people, well over. And
the videos, yeah.
I have already seen one woman who attended it with posting about it on her Instagram that she has a fever, saying she has COVID, and that everyone who went has to go get tested now.
She doesn't. I think that like the caption that she put under the photo is like, "Oh, so I'm contagious or whatever."
Or whatever. It just so perfectly shows you the kind of people they are, like they don't care. They're so selfish. And when the public backlash hit, and did it hit on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Reddit, all of their responses is just like, oh, they're just haters.
Well, especially because this dude, this Zane guy who kind of got like, he's like really taken the brunt of this deservedly, because he's like apparently a giant piece of shit for 101 different reasons. But this guy's been like running some like shifty nonprofit, like some kind of like dog rescue thing on our street and near the ice blocks that doesn't even exist. He's
so a little context. Zane is the guy who runs the People of Sacramento Instagram page.
Right.
He turned it into a whole sort of marketing for-profit thing, and then also has all these other weird side ventures, including what Skylar's describing right now.
Yeah, he just sounds like some kind of Instagram asshole who's like has a side hustle and tax evasion schemes. I don't know. I feel certain that this dude is not pumped that his name is in everybody's mouth for this fucking reason, I think.
But no, there's no such thing as bad publicity. So.
I guess that's true.
Well, tell that to his Twitter account that he deactivated today.
Oh, snap. Oh,
Instagram account that's just being lit up.
Yeah, I mean, we have to, listeners, if you are on Instagram, follow this account that will give you the play-by-play. Keep in mind, it's not journalism, but it is a whole lot of tea.
What's it like, the People of Sacramento scam or something?
It's called at People of Sacramento _scams. It's fucking amazing.
The tea of the day. It's my favorite tea.
It's a lot of tea. Amazing. It's a lot of tea.
It only has 2 posts. Well,
Right.
there's a bunch of stories.
The stories
you got to do.
God, the stories.
It only has 2 official posts.
Dude, I had a sunrise movement moment where I was doing that, where I had to Google like, how do I pause the stories because I'm trying to watch them and they're just like flying by, and I was like, no one can read this fast. What is happening? How do I slow it down? I like as like an old man. What is this? Who can read? Nobody can read this fast.
Small screen. What's going on, kiddo? Yeah.
How do these kids expect me to read this stuff?
Somebody's got to do the homework on
Slow it
the
down.
that.
All right, guitar slam.
That's amazing. And they do. They have like posts that are like 9 paragraphs and it's 3 seconds and gone. So you must have been like, what the fuck?
Oh, there's a lot of squinting and me holding my phone like here, like at my face. What is this?
I was obsessed with it today. And so again, anyone listening, follow it and check it out. And again, they're not a journalist to my understanding. So like, you know, things that they are writing on there do have to be verified probably, but there are journalists now who are paying a lot of attention.
It's mostly just screenshots of them commenting in social media shit though. So there's not like, I mean,
well as his history, Zane's history with this like phantom dog shelter. And then there's a couple of things they say about a local artist that one of the hosts really loves. So we won't get too much into
local treasure,
you gotta be careful, Flo.
Yeah,
the first person I thought of, I was like, oh.
I was gonna say, don't say his name, guys. Bleep that out.
A national treasure.
He don't pay his child support though.
So. Which one? Are we talking about Eddie Murphy?
Guys, I'm telling you.
I'm sorry. Did I just say the name?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm like,
his name. Somebody's saying he's not paying child.
But
let's bleep his name out.
All right, fair.
I'm super. I was equally intrigued.
I didn't say. No, nobody said his name.
I didn't say his name.
I think I said his name.
Yeah.
Oh.
But now nobody knows what it is because it's bleeped on this version of the show that everybody's listening to.
Bleep.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait, what? Huh? Yeah. I think the reason why this makes me the most angry is sort of, it's like you made a decision. We've all been doing this for 9 months. You made a decision to go to this party, to be entirely unmasked the entire time you were there. To be in close quarters inside. Like you did all of the things that you possibly could do wrong. And then afterwards it's like, oops, did I do a bad? And it's like, yeah. And what's infuriating about it is that the very people who were at this party are unlikely to suffer the consequences. And so like the long-term consequences. And what immediately came to mind was that wedding that happened, in Maine this summer.
Right.
Where the 7 people who died weren't even at the fucking wedding, right? Like these were people who, somebody went back and they worked in a prison and people got sick. Somebody went and somebody at the wedding worked at, a senior home, and like people died, and that's the thing that frustrates me, is that most of these people who attended are not going to be the ones who suffer the consequences of their reckless behavior. It'll be other more vulnerable people in the community. And so that's the part of it that's infuriating.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah. But I know at least. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I was also intrigued that the mansion was owned or formerly owned by Eddie Murphy. And I was wondering if folks could just speak on that.
I mean, yeah, I mean, he was like married to somebody who lived here like in the 90s or something, I think, and then bought this place.
Oh, the wife he has his kids with?
I think so.
Okay.
But then they divorced like a long time ago, and she got the house in the divorce. So, and now I don't know who owns it. Apparently someone who will rent it out for parties for like $25,000 or whatever.
Gotta make that money.
Yeah.
Thank you for satisfying part of my curiosity. I was just also intrigued by that part of it. I was like, I want to know more.
The new owner is just like, he calls himself Medi Urfi, and it's Eddie Murphy with a mustache.
It's Medi Urfi. Hey, real quick before we're done with this, I want to shout out to I don't know if she's a listener or not, but Kate Gonzalez has been doing a lot of great work with this and deserves recognition. She's been on like the front lines of this thing on social media and has been fucking kicking ass and taking names. So Kate, you rock. Thank you.
She will be coming out with a story on this, I think. And she's dealing with a lot of like attendees like telling her to fuck off and stuff when she's reaching out for quotes. So I'm interested to see the story. All right, well, shall we get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
Voices, the things they said, voices, some from those dead, all the voices heard. Voices, things we say, voices, they're in your head, all the voices heard.
Hello, everyone. We have Kempa.
And Skylar.
And Shannon.
And Flo.
And we have a
Evan.
very special. Okay, wow. You're right at home already.
Jumped
I love
right in.
it.
All right, love it.
And Evan. Yeah, so we have a very special guest today, our first guest of 2021. That's Evan Michael Minton. Evan, you are running as a candidate for District 6 in the Assembly District Election Meetings elections on something called the Blue Wave Rising Slate. For listeners who don't know what this is, we totally understand, and that's why we're having this episode. But first of all, Evan, you are also a sort of a progressive Democrat. You do a lot of work in economic justice, criminal justice reform, and as an environmental advocate. First of all, how are you today?
I'm excellent. I'm really good. Thank you for having me here. It's great to be here. I've seen this podcast and I never thought that I would be part of it. So it's great to be on this screen with you all.
Oh, that's funny. I kind of always assumed, like, I've seen some of the work you've done on and off, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure we'll have Evan on it. So.
Oh, thank you.
But you're just a very active member in the community. And I suppose that ties into what we're going to be discussing today. You are technically, I guess, running for a form of office. The ADEMs are a sort of intra-party election within the California Democratic Party that almost nobody knows about. First of all, can you tell us a little bit about what are the ADEMs for the layman listening?
Yeah, everything that you just said was true. It's the most consequential election that we can do to move the California Democratic Party to the left. If we want to make the California Democratic Party responsive to the people, if we want to make the California Democratic Party take progressive positions on ballot initiatives, on candidates, on legislation, then this is our chance to make our voices heard, to vote in this election, and the ADEMs are the way to do it. And what that means is the California Democratic Party is broken up into 3 different components. And one of those are and that makes up the governing board of the California Democratic Party.
Which is the Democratic State Central Committee, right?
Yeah. And it's super complex, but what it breaks down to is that elected officials and their appointees make up about 1/3 of the party. Another 1/3 of the party are the county central committees, and that's in each county they have a Democratic central committee, and those folks are voted on by the voters every 4 years in a presidential primary election, and then they vote amongst themselves as to who's going to be a delegate to the party. And so those folks, some of the people on the central committees in each county are the delegates to the party, are on the governing board, and that makes up 1/3 of the governing board of the California Democratic Party. And then we get to the grassroots level, and that's the ADEMs. And we are the people who are directly elected by neighbors and by community members. And we serve 2-year terms and really serve at the will of the people. And so, we live in a representative democracy. We vote to see who will vote on our behalf. But the ADEMs is direct democracy. And I'm running, as you mentioned, on the Blue Wave Rising slate in order to represent friends and neighbors here in Assembly District 6.
Absolutely. So we'll get into a little bit on kind of what it takes, what sort of chops you got to have to be on a progressive slate. But I want to drive home a lot of what you said, because this is very hard for your average person to sort of take in, right? So I want to reiterate what you said one more time. This is often described that the state Democratic Party and the way it governs itself is sort of broken down by 3 legs on a stool, right? The first leg, as you said, is the elected officials and then their appointees. The second leg is that county side of it. So on the county level, people who get voted in on presidential election years, and then they work among themselves to suss out who are delegates. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And each county gets, we're going to go into the details here if you'd like, but each county gets at least 4 delegates that way, and then the rest is based on population. So they get more based on population. So that's the second leg of the stool.
So, and each of these legs has about a third of the end game delegates that determine the party and how the party is governed. The third and final leg, as you very succinctly put, is the most directly democratic side of the party that really was created so that the Democratic Party, ideally would not lose track of what grassroots people wanted, what is important to them, and that those folks are always in the room when the party at the top is making its decisions, such as determining which politicians to endorse who are running for office, when it is writing out the sort of political platform, things like that.
Yeah. And also, like, when we're taking like the big checks that make the party, I mean, I'll be honest, that make the party, some people think that make the party go, but it's just like, when people are accepting the big checks from on high, it's like, who is going to be responsive to the people at the same time, because there's a fight in the party. The party is being pulled at 2 ends. One is from up here, and then one is from down here. The one down here is the ADEMs, generally speaking. Yes. I've been up here. I've been an appointed delegate for about 6 years now, but I'm cutting the ties in order to run for the ADEMs.
Love it. I did not know that.
Yeah.
So, great. You're going to be like really interesting to talk to about these sort of intra-party dynamics then, because you've been around the block. Now, I want to drive home to people why it's important for your average person to know what is happening within the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is itself a private organization. So if you're an average person living in California or an average voter, it's like, why the hell should I want to know what the hell they're doing on the inside? It's really important in a state like California because Democrats run everything. Right. It is a single party state. Every single statewide office, every single in both of our legislature houses, in our Senate and our Assembly, Democrats have a super duper majority, over 3/4 of representation. Republicans don't make a difference in there. And if they wanted, anytime they wanted, Democrats could pass through any legislation they wanted if they were a united front. Now, we're seeing, though, that when this single party rule is happening, we're having, in my position as a journalist, a lack of transparency. Whereas a lot more politics might be more out in the open. There might be a lot more sunlight on it. We actually have laws for, seeing elected officials, interactions and emails and things like that. Within the Democratic Party, as it's making these decisions and voting in ways in like the ADEM elections that will determine what happens in legislation in the future, we don't have access to that. And I will tell you, very few journalists focus on ADEMs. I wrote a story 2 years ago in Capital Weekly explaining what the ADEMs were. I don't think you see much of that beyond that, but I think it is increasingly something that journalists should be focusing on. So this, it's really interesting. Democratic Party is a private org. Not only that, like, it's not like a, public sanctioned election either. So it's like, these elections they're not subject to FPPC rules. Like,
right.
Evan could be going out and buying like a mimosa brunch for like every voter in his district. And like, that's
who's to say that I'm not?
Yeah, I was gonna. Oh well, I guess I'm District 7. I was about to complain about the lack of an invite, but
I mean,
yeah.
How do you all think that we got you on the show? Like,
Right.
Yeah.
like 4 mimosas deep right now.
Flo, it should be right outside your door.
I'm gonna go check the mail now.
But I wanted to drive that home a little bit. Can you, I mean, I was going to dive a little into the history of sort of the Bernie-crats versus the insider Dems in California and how the ADEMs were a part of that. It seems like you know the history very well. Do you want to tell this story and maybe I could just fill in some details as you go?
I could fill in details as you go.
Okay.
What I've been doing is I can tell you about my involvement. I first became involved with the California Democratic Party when I worked for then Assembly Member Dave Jones. He put up really progressive, ballot measures, and it was important to me to try to get the endorsement of the party on those ballot measures. And so that is something that I don't think enough people pay attention to, because I'm sorry, I'm taking you off course, but tell me to keep on going, or tell me if you want to.
Well, I don't know where you're taking me, so I don't know.
Well, yeah,
I say keep it going. Let's follow this through to
let's go on
the
the trip.
conclusion.
Let's see where we end up.
The unbeaten path, and if you don't like it, you don't like it. Cut it out.
You took us up to the moon, and we're following you.
Yeah.
Okay, exactly. It's a good vantage point up here. No, I was just gonna say that people don't realize that consultants get paid like thousands of dollars to try to win the endorsement for their candidate or their ballot measure, within the California Democratic Party. Because as you were saying, Dave, you were saying that, like, we have millions of Democrats throughout the state. And I mean, voters don't have a lot of time to do a lot of research. Like, so many voters don't. And like, my goodness, we go to work, we take care of our, families if we have them. Like, there's, we have so many other things that we're doing. And so sometimes all we do when we go and vote, if we're able to vote, is we rely on the endorsement of the Democratic Party to tell us what to do. And so that's why, if you're a smart campaigner, sometimes winning the endorsement of the California Democratic Party, in fact, often winning the endorsement of the California Democratic Party, that is your ticket to winning the race. And I'm not just talking about like local office. I'm talking about campaigns that I've worked on for attorney general, for insurance commissioner, for ballot measures. Sometimes we win the endorsement of the ballot measure and sometimes it goes on to fail on the actual ballot, in November. But I mean, I don't think that people know the actual, they don't know, you're right. They don't know a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. And it's just like, I'm glad that we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Consultants get paid thousands of dollars for it. And I don't think that people also know that they can organize the party from outside of the party as well. And I want people to know that, because that is another form of democracy that I think that we need to be participating in.
Totally.
Anyway, taking us a little bit away from ADEMs, everybody vote for me, But
it's
go
funny.
ahead.
It's it's funny because I think a lot of our listeners are the people who do push the party around from the outside. We have a lot of
Okay.
socialist, communist listeners, but like that's why I think this is an interesting episode. It's sort of showing folks this other side of it, and you know, there's always a fight on the left on like, you know, do you try and fix the Democrats from within? Do you push them from without? I tend to believe there's kind of a yes and to it all, and that each side makes the other ones easier as, you know, as that happens. But I think I'm taking us off track now. Where the fuck was that going?
Well, you were talking about how the Bernie-crats were actually organizing. They came in, and I mean, I believe that was with the California Nurses Association. And it's just like they saw a prime opportunity to come in and influence the ADEMs. And I mean, and as I was saying, like I started out with Dave Jones, and then people asked me to be on the finance committee of the California Democratic Party. That's how I got my first appointment to the party. That was under the like, I guess it's called the finance officer. I don't even remember at this point. And then I was appointed by the vice chair of the party to be a delegate. And then I supported Duraka in the last chair's race. Rusty Hicks, the current chair of the party, knew that. And still, when I miscommunicated with Duraka, he didn't know I needed an appointment. And he told Rusty, and Rusty was like, I'll appoint Evan. And so now I'm an appointee by the chair of the party. And so I've always kind of ridden that, you know, thing and kind of stayed away from ADEMs. And now I'm in this ADEMs race and I'm like, wow, this is so much drama. You know, it is. It's so much drama. It's intense. I'm glad that I'm in it. But it's just like, so I've just kind of seen it a little bit from the peripheral in the past, but I can fill in the gaps of, you know, of what you might lay out.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, let me jump into that. Like, I don't want to go too far back. Let's just go as far back as like 5 years ago, right? So Bernie loses the primary to Hillary, and then of course the Democrats lose the presidency. And in 2017, when they held the ADEMs, this was such a not often looked at voting thing, the process, that the Bernie-crats rallied, they organized, and they pulled together slates all throughout the state, and they kind of ran the state in 2017 in their elections. And so they suddenly had this massive clout in the party that they had not had before. Fast forward to 2019, it was a little more, I think the insider Dems are a little more savvy now.
Yeah, they saw what was coming.
Yeah, and so the electeds, the insiders, particularly in very heavy duty, like establishment Democrat spaces like in LA or San Francisco, they fought back in the same way, and they pulled together huge like powerful slates and rallied people out there. And, you know, like I said, you know, you can ply people with like, you know, breakfast and coffee in the morning and brunches and stuff. And they actually ended up beating the progressives in some of the places that progressives had performed in really well in 2017. So I think 2021, we're walking into something that's kind of interesting. I want to just like take a look real quick at some of the numbers. I reached out to, I don't know if you know, Alfred Twu.
Yeah.
Fantastic organizer out in Berkeley, and huge, like, just social advocate. Alfred in 2019 pulled together a spreadsheet that basically had every single progressive slate and throughout the state, and it sort of showed who won and who didn't. And so thanks to Alfred, we're able to just look at this real quick. So the progs, basically the ones that are part of it's part of the Progressive Delegates Network, basically. So potential delegates run their name and their platform by PDN, and then they decide if they're going to endorse them or not. Their endorsements are like based on, you know, the meat and potatoes of leftism and progressivism, right? Medicare for all, Black Lives Matter, Green New Deal, right? And economic justice. And so they identified 975 people that they would endorse for the ADEMs. This is out of 1,120 seats. So that's 87% of the seats had at least a prog running for it. Of those, 2/3 of those won. But some places they didn't, as I was saying, were in like a San Francisco where London Breed and, Anthony Weiner rallied their folks to go up against the progs. I think your district is interesting because they only identified 4 people that they would endorse that year. So I think that there's a lot of potential for the progs to gain some ground in 86. Is that accurate?
Yeah, no, I think so as well. Yeah, and I just wanted to touch on those dynamics that you were talking about, you know, like the Bernie Kratz really making a play for the ADEMs, and then the elected officials like really pushing back, you know, because I mean, the ADEMs again is 1/3 of the voting bloc of the California Democratic Party. And then now we're seeing, you know, the slates, the elected officials are putting up slates of ADEMs, and, you know, the grassroots, the progressives are putting up slates of ADEMs. And so it's really interesting. And so, you know, many of the grassroots are saying to the elected officials, like, stay out of the ADEMS process, you know? So yeah, there's a lot of different dynamics going on there. But yeah, there's only one slate in our district. And these are folks who have, this slate organizer is a person named M. Ward, and they are just a really awesome non-binary leader who has done really amazing community work, and just progressive as all heck. And John Shaban is also on our slate. We have,
I gotta say, when I saw John on your slate, I was like, "Oh, this guy's a fucking comrade. Like, this is definitely the progressive slate."
Yeah. So, we're gonna, you know, I'm excited to get people who, you know, Jarita on our slate is new to our party. I hope that she gets elected. And Dr. Flo was the person who introduced me to Jarita. Jarita contributes to BWAPA's voter guide. You know, we have some chances to pick up
NSAC
people.
Sister Circle. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm sorry. BWAPA and Sister Circle. That's an important correction in addition. So we have like opportunities to bring new people into our party, you know, existing progressives and more people. Michelle Wright on our slate is with the National Lawyers Guild. You know, do I want someone who's going to go to the protests and like freaking watch and make sure that law enforcement is following the law? Yes, I do. You know, and so it's just like this is a really purple district out here, but we have a lot of exciting opportunities to bring really cool folks into the party.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting and cool. And again, I want to like let listeners know what we mean when we talk about the slate. Basically, 14 folks, usually that's the max you can do, because in every assembly district, there are 80 assembly districts in the state. In every one, you have the ADEM elections, and that's for 14 slots. That's for 7 people who identify as women and 7 people who do not identify as women. And
Correct.
so what you do is, based on your political ideology, usually is you get 13 of your closest ideological friends together, and you say, all right, we're each going in here. We're each going to get 30, 40, 50 people to come down to vote for me and the other 13 of you. And our pact is you're going to get 30, 40, 50 people to come down and vote for the rest of us too. And so sort of it's like, it's organizing, right? It's in a very simple sense.
Oh, it so is. Like, I was M. Ward reached out to me and asked me to be on the slate. And I didn't really know what that meant. I mean, I know like I didn't know the commitments that were involved. And then, so I was like, yeah, okay. And I gave M all the caveats as to, well, I don't know about this. I don't know about this. And M was like, just be on the slate. And I said, okay, cool. I'll be on the slate. And then maybe at our second or third slate meeting, they said, okay, everybody needs to secure 50 votes. And I spend my time between Sacramento proper and Fair Oaks, where I live right now. And I'm like, and Dr. Flo knows all of this already, but I'm like, I don't know 50 people out here. Like, I've paid my dues out here, like I volunteer organize like 10 phone banks for Greg Fishman. When Jess Camorris was running for Congress, I was walking for her, and phoning for her just about every day during the general election. I called Kevin Kiley, my assembly member, because he took too many wrong votes on trans issues. And I was going to complain. And as the phone was ringing, this was a couple months ago, I was like, I wonder if he's ever talked to an openly trans person. And so in the middle of like the phone ringing, I was like, I'd like to schedule an appointment to talk to my assembly member, and so, I actually had a meeting with him. But, I don't have the relationships. And so it took me, I started out on a list of 2 names. They were my sisters. Found out I was going to add my brother-in-law. Found out during my campaign that he's a no party preference voter. So, but through the power of meeting various people, like Moms on the Left is a super great group out here. Through 1-hour-long conversations where I talk about who I am, and I learn about who the person on the other end of the phone call is, and what their views of the California Democratic Party are, where they think improvements can be made, what my views are, what my plans are. Slowly but surely, I've gotten my way up to 48 commitments now. But that is through like 70 hours. And that's what a real campaign is, and I love it.
So this is, you bring up a lot of really interesting points because, pulling together this number of folks for each person on a slate, 50 people might not seem a lot to a person who's listening and saying like, aren't there over 10 million fucking people in the California Democratic Party? And that's true. And they'd say, well, wouldn't there be a lot more voting in the ADEMs? And that's not true. The ADEMs only pull in, like last year, they pulled in like 40,000 Democrats throughout the state. And this is a very consequential election. And so I think that's really interesting. It's really important to drive that home. And when I said last year, I meant 2019. 2019, they had in-person elections. It's going to be online this year, so we have to talk about that today. They also had same-day registration, so I knew a lot of Democratic Socialists who'd go down. They'd say, I know some DSA members who are on this slate. I'm going to join the Democratic Party for today. Then I'm going to fuck off from the Democratic Party a month from now, but I'm just doing this today so that I can get this friend, into this position. In different districts, let me show you. So in Sacramento region has 4 main assembly districts. That's 6, which is yours, 7, 8, and 9. In your district, the number of votes, there were 702. In 2017, 2 years before that, there were 290 votes. In 2015, there were 91. So word is just getting out on the importance of these elections. And I think the strategy that you were just discussing with us is sort of forming deeper and deeper. So this is increasingly a really important thing. Just to jump through a couple other, District 7, which is most of us in the downtown area, there were under 600 votes. District 8, there were under 300. And in District 9, which is where Assemblymember Jim Cooper is, a hardcore conservative Democrat, there were 600 votes. I went to that, I covered it, and I saw him screaming at his staffers and followers because the progressives came and beat the shit out of them. So again, I mean, this is just something that there's a lot of potential for power to be taken here.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and as a Democrat, like, I have to say, Democratic Socialists, like, come into our party and stay there and help us make it better. Like, help us make it better. You know, I'm running with slate mates who are DSA members, and they help us make it better. Like, I want DSA members in our party. Like, DSA members help make our party better. So I just wanted to touch on that. But yeah, no, absolutely. Like, a little more amount of involvement from our surrounding communities will really make a difference in these races, in the different assembly districts in our region. Absolutely.
I think a lot about when we talk about sort of like the left working together on stuff. I think of the 4 hosts, 2 of us are Democrats and 2 of us are not, right? Is that true?
I mean, I had to switch I'm like in the process of switching myself back to Democratic just so I can vote. In this, yeah. But yeah, I was no party preference up until I did that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm no party as well. And I'm very happy where I am there. But I think a lot about, like, when we look at progressives and then all the way over to the left, like, what unity looks like and where the line for where that stops is. I think that's a really interesting discussion. I am sort of a leftist who I'm willing to toy around with electoralism and that stuff. And I know that there are leftists who do not. I do think back to, France in, just before World War II, like France had been taken over by fascists. And what ended up happening was the socialists and communists came together, formed a popular front. And by that, I mean, the socialists said to the communists, hey, if we go out to direct action with you and we put our bodies on the line the way you do every day, will you come to these things and partake in these votes? And we can hopefully both symbiotically help each other and kick these fucking fascists out of office, right? And I think about that when I look at, like, if socialists do want to be a part of the Democratic Party or not. For me personally, I look at District 6, and we've got some good friends of the show on here. We've got Tamika Lecluse, District 7. We've got Tamika Lecluse. We got Katie Valenzuela, of course, Cesar, who is another fucking real one, comrade, which we can't share why. And then when I saw Naila Pope Hardin on there, I was like, all right, I'll join the Democrats for a fucking week.
Shout out to my man Ian Lee, man. He's another DSA.
Oh, Ian's on there. Yeah,
Ian's on there too. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some goodies on there. Claire. And so fine. I'll fucking vote in the ADEMs, but I will take like 3 showers afterwards.
Thank you for voting in the ADEMs. And I mean, you know, not that anyone asked, but I respect where people are at. You know, like there's power in allyship, there's power in alliances. I want us all fighting together. It doesn't matter to me what someone's designation is, but you know, in that fight necessarily, like, but if you can come with me and help me move the party that I'm in further to the left to be more responsive to the people, then that would be cool. But I respect where people are at. And so, you know, in order to vote, and I know that you know this, but just saying this generally, folks need to request their ballot by January 11th.
Well, and to that point, if you're no party preference right now, like get on that now, because it takes days for them to make that switch. So if you know you're no party preference right now and you do want to vote in the ADEMs, go to your computer right now and make the switch, because the deadline's coming up.
Now
that's why I never end up no party preferencing it, because I feel like I end up having to do this all the time. Like, I really don't do much with the Democratic Party at all, because I think that they're too far to the right for me. But I also want to be able to vote in things like ADEMs, and especially in a state like California, it's helpful to be able to at least exert some influence while that party is basically the only one that's kind of in charge of the entire state. So I find myself in these positions where it's like, oh, then the primary comes up and I want to vote for this, and so I have to like re-register, and I'm just like, my life's not together enough for me to remember when the deadline is for me to re-register. So I'm just like, I just kind of stay in it. But I mean, to your point, I find myself frequently disillusioned with where we are, especially in a place that, you know, considers itself to be so progressive. And yet I think there are a lot of fights that if we were as progressive as we advertised ourselves to be, we wouldn't be quite in the same position we are in. I'm really actually curious, and Evan or any of the other, you know, co-hosts who maybe know about this, I did not realize until the first time I voted in ADEMs, which was I think like 2019, that there was a gender requirement for the slate. And so I'm curious to know what that means. I'm curious to know why it exists. And I'm curious to know what that means for people who consider themselves, you know, not to be part of the binary that it seems to be, you know, representing. And so I'm just really curious if you know, anybody who knows about that wants to speak to it.
Yeah. I'm happy to take that question, Flo. Up until a couple years ago, it was we wanted as you know, we live in a patriarchy, you know, and so, you know, and as you know, we don't have enough women elected in general, you know, in any positions of power. And so, you know, having the gender balance there and requirements was important, because we wanted that parity among, you know, people running and representation within our party. And then we changed it because we needed to, obviously having two genders is not representative of who people are, you know, or our society. And so what we did was we changed it to 7, you know, self-identified females, and then and that's the term, you know, and then 7 people who are other than self-identified females. And so that is where you know, anyone who is on the gender spectrum and who is not on the gender spectrum in the universe of genders are in those 7 spaces. I don't know if it's necessarily a perfect system, but it keeps the representation of women in the party, and that's an important thing. And it also respects the humanity and the dignity of everyone else who is running.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
What happens if, like, I know you're encouraging people to vote for your entire slate of 14, but what happens if people don't? What happens if people vote for, 5 or 6 of the people on your slate and then vote elsewhere? How does that work?
Yeah. Then, our slate has come together and made commitments with each other about how we're going to advance our progressive agenda within Assembly District 6. And that's like, we're going to be responsive to the community needs. We're going to grow our voter base here. Like our slate are the ones who've put in the hard work in Assembly District 6 to try to make it blue. And they've taken steps forward in that. They have, we've agreed, like, we're going to fight for Black Lives Matter, both in our community and in the party. We're going to fight for, like, BIPOC communities. We're going to fight for, we specify trans plus inclusion. We're going to, LGBTQ plus communities, like all of that. We've laid out commitments that we're going to do together. If we don't get elected as a slate, that'll be a disappointment, but we're inclusive people. Like, we're going to hopefully fold in who gets elected for, the betterment of all of us. But we came together because we're the people who have been, with much respect to everybody on the ballot, I did not organize our slate, but I believe in our slate. And I was told these are the people who have consistently put in the hard work. These are the progressive folks. These are the people who've been consistently turning and trying to turn Assembly District 6 blue, and we've had, I think, 8 meetings with each other now, like hours long meeting about what is our commitment to our community, what is our commitment to the party, what are we going to be doing. And we've signed, like, the staff take the pledge. We're all signing that, a ticket. We're rejecting, like, law enforcement campaign contributions. Like, if we're going to be raising money, we've signed the no fossil fuel pledge, to get oil money out. And so I believe in our slate, but it's just like, if our folks don't all get elected, I fully intend to fold other people in, because we get what we get, but we're just going to push for what we think is right and what we want.
Awesome.
That's
Evan,
awesome.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. I think you're an incredible person, and I've seen you fight some really tough fights in this town over the years, and so I'm glad we got to have you on today. I want to drive home, just for listeners, if, like me, you saw somebody on one of these slates that you're like, God damn it, I got to join the Democrats and vote for this person, go to ademelections.com to register for your ballot. ademelections.com. Fill that out basically immediately. We want you to be able to get your mail-in ballot to vote for this. And I guarantee you, as soon as you do that vote, you can leave the fucking Democrats and never come back until 2 years from now.
Yeah, until we all have to sign back up for a different reason. Like,
yeah.
wow, God,
I will continue to do this. I never joined the Dems either because of primaries, because we have jungle primaries, and I can vote in the Democratic primaries for presidential elections.
Exactly.
So fuck it. So go there. If you want to know who the progressives are in your region, go to ADEMS 2021. That's ADEMS 2021.vote. And type in your assembly district, and you will find who the progressives are, like what the slate is in your district. They are still filling it out on the day that we're recording this, but it should be raring and ready to go within the next couple days. And that's where you can go to find out who to vote for. Anything else we want to add? Oh, by the way, in District 7, if no other reason to vote, to join the Democrats and vote, friend of the show, Steve Maviglio, is running.
I saw that. He's all the way at the bottom. He's the very bottom of the people who are running in District 7.
Yeah, vote against America's landlord. Join the Democrats for District.
What is he doing? Why does he keep running in these things? What the fuck is this guy's problem?
He's a snake, man. All these snakes have succeeded in Sacramento for decades. They think they still can. Not anymore. Not with people like Evan and Flo out there. All right.
Well, Dave, I do have one last question, which is, this is a show, and this was an episode in particular with many takes. I almost said flakes. That's
because I flaked off so much.
That's my cereal that I'm developing in my kitchen back here for now. Many takes, though, ranging from flawless to perfect, I would say, which is not the widest range, but we like to keep it to pretty far to one end of that spectrum. Dave, if I was hunting down more takes, but I only want the perfect and flawless takes, can you recommend a website to me where I could go where those are curated and consolidated for me to take that? I'm a busy guy. I don't have time to go through all the takes and see which ones are the perfect ones and which ones are the whack ones. Is there somewhere that I can go where there just aren't any whack takes and all the takes are perfect, so I can read the great takes and then go about my busy and my busy life where I do a lot of stuff that's important?
Fantastic question. And I know that, you're very busy right now. If we go to a Twitter, I empathize with this a lot. You go to a Twitter out there and you just see a whole cacophony of takes, right? And the Overton window of takes is very, very wide and confusing. But if you go to this little corner of the internet that we here on the show own and love and curate, called voicesrivercity.com, that is the most beautiful, tiny, you just want to squeeze it, little Overton window of perfect takes.
Love that
range, as you said, from perfect to, what was it?
Flawless.
To flawless. Yeah. So we've been around for over 3 years. We've been doing news and arts. We've been doing the Sack Follows the Money project. We're doing this current fucking podcast, and it's fucking incredible.
Sure is.
This podcast is not just on the site. It is anywhere that you can download podcasts. Can you fucking believe it? So go check out that anywhere you can go. And feel free to like and subscribe and all those things. That definitely helps us out. We are
Dave,
on YouTube.
I'm going to interrupt real quick. Because it sounds like what you're telling me is that with me spending only my time and just pledging my time to it, I can hear basically an hour of perfect takes every week, which is fantastic. But what if I wanted to have 2 hours of perfect takes every week, double the amount of perfect takes?
Shit.
Is there a way that I could do that?
Yes. There is another beautiful little place called patreon.com/voicesrivercity where you can pledge as little as $5 a month to the Voices movement.
You're saying twice as many perfect takes for $5 a month?
I hadn't said it yet, but I was going to say that you were correct, that every Tuesday you get your perfect takes for free. And then every Friday, if you become a patron, for as little as $5 a month. That's like $1 an episode for double the episodes.
Honestly, at that price point, I feel like I'm robbing you.
I know. I think you are too, but I'm not gonna hold it against anyone. So I'm just thankful that you folks are listening. But you know, we're trying to build something cool here, and it's just always really brilliant when people I don't know, when they give us that vote of encouragement through the Patreon. We're on Facebook, Voices River City, YouTube, Voices River City. You can see all of our pretty little faces. And
our fantastic comments. I love the comments on YouTube are fantastic. If you haven't
the far-right commenters that somehow find their way to our leftist podcast.
I love it.
Adore every second of it.
Yeah.
Thinking about it right now.
I'm loving it. And
I'm loving it.
We're on Instagram at Voices River City. Skylar runs that. It is fucking hilarious. I personally am on the Twitter at Kempa, YOUKNOWKEMPA.
You can find me on Twitter at Guillotine for You. That's Guillotine, the number 4, YOU.
I'm also on the Bird over at Shan ND Stevens.
And you can find me on Twitter at Flojaune, FLOJAUNE.
And Evan, where on the internet can we find you?
Well, you can find me on the internet at Evan M. Minton, and that's on Twitter. And I just wanted to say that you signed me up. Skylar, you convinced me. It didn't take much convincing. I believe in your program very strongly. I'm going to do $5 a month.
Folks, you love to see.
Look, you heard it. You heard it here first. Our infomercials grab people immediately.
They do.
We also have the perfect infomercials.
Very convincing.
I'm going to pay for better infomercials.
There we go.
Love it. I mean, Evan, just one more time, I wanted to say thank you. I think you're an incredible person. I'm so glad we got to have you on such short notice. I think the ADEMs are very important, and I love that we got to have somebody who could kind of give us the context that you're able to. And best of luck on your race.
Thank you so much for your generosity in having me on, and thank you for the vital services that you all provide in holding our town accountable and doing it with like humor and fun. And I just I don't know what to say after that, so just forget that I just said the and, because I appreciate what you guys do, period.
Perfect.
Fantastic.
Another perfect take.
Well, guys, I think that wraps it for today. But thank you for listening to the show. As per usual, we will see you in a few days. But until then, we love you very much, and we want you to please stay safe.
Stay sane.
Stay healthy.
And stay the fuck away from Eddie Murphy's mansion.
Don't go to Granite Bay, yo.
Just never go to Granite
Bay. They got COVID.
Yeah, really for any reason.
Yeah.
There's no reason.
That's my voter base.
Oh shit!
Oh wait, no, Granite Bay is great.
Never mind.
Most
Granite
of the houses
Bay.
that didn't belong to Eddie Murphy are really good.
Do over, Do.
Abort.
Cut the show. Cut the show.
I'm not a part of this.